Higher education, broadly speaking, is often thought of as a monolithic entity. But as I think we all can attest, that's not exactly the case. Our system is comprised of nonprofit public and private institutions, research juggernauts, liberal arts bastions, vocational and technical innovators, community colleges, and even fledgling for-profit institutions. They cater to a cornucopia of intellectual interests and skilled pathways. One would think, though, that having such a diversity of institutional types and educational offerings would allow us to take on any challenge that society puts forth. Again, this isn't in reality true. The increasing contemporary internal and external challenges being laid upon higher education institutions has allowed us, really has challenged us to think about a new set of questions in various strategic ways. These are, who are the students we are serving? What are their backgrounds? How are we preparing them? Are we even preparing them? And are we potentially sacrificing institutional excellence for, or at the cost of, student advancement and opportunity? Now, these are all questions that we as professionals have to answer in the coming years. But tonight, I'd like to pose a larger one. And that is, as potential educators in a variety, about to enter a variety of fields and positions, how do we understand these challenges interfacing with nearly 4,500 degree-granting institutions in the country? The challenges higher education institutions and their students face today are unique. To be sure, higher education faces unparalleled national scrutiny, not only in terms of our curriculum, our purposes, but also our accessibility. Federal and state legislatures, parents, students, and industry leaders all have publicly voiced their opinions on how society should best serve, or how institutions should best serve society, both in print and in terms of their funding. Most of these, in my opinion, are short-sighted and, frankly, driven by the desire for short-term economic gain. Nonetheless, they've been pervasive, and we have to address them and challenge them. And this is the responsibility for all of us, not just those in higher education, but in every capacity and every educational endeavor. Cost has always been a barrier, even with community colleges, but higher education has never witnessed such extreme economic burdens to date. State appropriations for institutions have dramatically decreased over the past quarter century. At that same point, public institution tuition prices have risen approximately 315%. This is kind of frightening. Debt-burdened students are asking whether their education was worth the investment, and many institutions are asking themselves if they can sustain this educational model in light of competition. Liberal arts institutions, in particular, despite enrolling nearly 2% of college attendees, have been savagely attacked by society to defend their educational model. Is a bachelor's degree in Socratic philosophy and classics relevant to our economy? Is one curricular model superior or more lucrative than another? And should that be the case? These questions, of course, call into question what is the purpose of education, not just for liberal arts colleges, but for across all institutions. With different institutions attempting to define that purpose along their mission statements, how are individual students able to determine which form of education to pursue for themselves, or even determine whether matriculating at a higher education institution is the right choice to take? At no other point in history has higher education faced a world in which an incalculable amount of information is ubiquitous and accessible to anyone with a connection to the internet. MOOC providers like edX, Coursera, Udacity present exciting and hopeful opportunities for redesigning our curriculum, but at what cost to the institutions and their models? Upon consideration of these questions and their pervasiveness, I would posit that perhaps we are too focused on the dominant framing national dialogues, which are largely biased and uninformed, and actually embarking upon a course that is quite antithetical to our democratic vision of the pursuit of education. Knowledge undoubtedly is our business. It's our product. As Louis Menand points out in his text, The Marketplace of Ideas, Americans are committed to the principle that the production of knowledge should be uninhibited and access to it should be universal. This is a democratic ideal. However, while these maxims aren't fully realized at the tertiary level, the diversification of our system, despite its faults and questions which plague it, allow a larger percentage of our society to actually attain an educational level at the tertiary level. This is not insignificant. It also continues to provide hope and opportunity for those individuals seeking to further their education. I'd like to conclude with the following. The challenges facing higher education have serious implications for our society. And as we re-enter the field of education, it behooves us to critically think about what society we want to create and how our diversified system can best leverage its strengths to achieve that reality.